Okay, Lukey, we've got Swoop Luke here. It's obviously Dutchy here. We're both pretty excited about what's taking place at the Collingwood Footy Club at the moment, my man. And you've been in the thick of things, obviously, at training, at games, and reviewing, as you normally would review games and looking at, obviously, the way they're shaping moving into games in every given week. How are you seeing things at the moment? Because I know everyone's starting to talk about the lids off, etc. Should the lid be off already, mate? Do you think?
Yeah, look, I was watching the game with Dad and my cousins and grandfather the other day, and there was a bit in the third quarter where Brisbane were coming onto the attack. Isaac Quaynor sort of cut it off. He took the ball and he hit Jamie Allier in between two Brisbane players in the forward line. And as soon as that happened, I think it was the third quarter, I turned to Dad and I said, "Mate, we're going to win the flag this year." It just felt like 2023 all over again. There was just a confidence and that game was like a chest out sort of game. Like we were stamping our authority on the Lions and on the premiership tilt. So the lids. It's not fully off, but the lid is starting to come off now.
I'm pretty excited about it. I think I went into the game thinking. I think I ended up on my podcast tipped Brisbane, but I said they won't lose another game after this. So I was pretty confident about where they were heading, but I didn't see that necessarily the game was going to go like this. And they have struggled historically with the smaller ground. It's not finding enough space for their overlap runners like the Joshes and the Nick Daicoses of the world. But what do you put it down to in terms of how? I mean, I've got some theories of my own, but what are your thoughts on how we stop them in their tracks?
I think we just we did exactly what we did to Sydney. Sydney and Brisbane like to play through the corridor a lot. So if you watch their last couple of games, especially Sydney against the Roos and then Brisbane the week before, they just like playing through the corridor, and we just closed it right up for them. And there was nowhere where they can go. You saw that Brisbane had they had to go into their kick and mark game, so they had more marks and more kicks than us. But that's because they just couldn't find space where they wanted to. So we really penned them in, and then they panic. We get them on the counter attack. Exactly the same thing that happened to Sydney. So we demolish the game plan of two grand finalists, back to back.
Yeah, when you're seeing that sort of bird's eye view from the obviously the cameras, you can see that the forwards are rolling up really quickly and getting good ground position. You can see the midfielders are moving skinny and holding good ground position, and the defenders are rolling up in front of their man ready for that long kick down the line. And Brisbane, at all costs, were looking for that lane shift so they can move the ball on the open side, but we just weren't allowing it. And then when we did allow it, we allowed it. They were forced to go back behind and around, which meant we just shifted our zone across, and it just gave us more time to catch a breath in defence and shift the defence. So it was really well constructed, and I think everyone seems to be well connected defensively and on the same page at the moment. I think the other thing is too, it's actually interesting, isn't it? You got the media who are right on our tail about being too old, and 10 guys are over 30 on the list. And David King made a comment, I think yesterday or the day before, how there's not enough talk about their asset being their experience, because they all understand the game, they understand the game plan, they understand what to do in certain scenarios, and they don't panic when they're put in those heated moments. And now they're starting to talk. We've gone 6 weeks ago, them saying we won't make the 8, or some of them saying we won't make the 8, to them saying it's an asset. So now they're using it to their advantage. So, I mean, overall, mate, you've been at training and you've been at every game so far. What have you seen why are we so different, and why are we looking so confident compared to last year, do you think?
I think, look, I know it's probably pretty easy to say, but it is injuries. This time last year, when we got to Easter Thursday, we were 0-3 before playing the Lions. We were both 0-3, and we lost those couple of games at the start of the year, and that was because the injuries that we had to no one was in the same sort of position every single week. It was players rotating a lot. This year, we're locking down players in certain positions. Josh Daicos hasn't moved off the half back line, whereas last year he was going from the wing to an inside mid to a half back. So we do have that. And what else is the depth as well. So you see that a lot in training where even the players from the AFL listed players that are playing in the VFL, they're putting out everything that they can in the VFL games and in training as well. So that's helping. So last year when we had to bring in Ned Long, he had played 5 games for Hawthorn, not a senior game. Sullivan as well, Ed Allen, but now they've got another preseason under their belt. The games from last year under their belt as well. I think that's, you just talked about the age being an asset. I think getting games into these young kids has been an asset as well. And you talked about that before the season started, how getting the experience into those kids last year was going to help us at the start of this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a catch-22. Sometimes when you put kids in too early and they feel like they're not up to it, sometimes a lot of people say once you get to 50 games, you're away. But sometimes if you can't get to 50 games because your first 30 games are ordinary, people put a line through you, and then all of a sudden in 2 or 3 years you're delisted. But if you can hang around, like you've got guys like obviously Allen and Long that have played, probably more so Long now. He's been in the system for an extra year or two than Allen. But he's been probably starved of senior games, which mean he has to play a lot of VFL, which mean he is ready once he gets there at 21.
Yes,
What is he, 21 now? He's probably ready now because he's played a lot of VFL footy. And I was a bit sceptical about Long, I must admit. I thought Allen might be a little bit ahead of him at that moment. But when you look at the loss of, I suppose, last year when De Goey didn't play very often, a bigger body through the middle, and also the loss of Taylor Adams at Sydney, we just didn't have that hard edge, intimidating body that could crack in and win it hard on the inside and allow the Josh Daicoses to go about their work. But he's been phenomenal, hasn't he, really? Like I'm just looking at his stats there again now. He's had done the 21 and 6 tackles and kicked a goal as well. Yeah. And he's worth his weight in gold with his tenacity around the ball at the moment. He's just found his niche and found his strength, and he's just running away with it.
And in a team where, we haven't seen Tom Mitchell play for a year since Anzac Day last year. So with a team that doesn't have that wombat type player as well, last year Nick Daicos had to not only win his own football, he had to use his own football that he just won. So he was wrecked, and he nearly won the Brownlow because of it, right? But this year we have Ned Long, who, like you said, no Taylor Adams, no De Goey for the most part, no Tom Mitchell, who's coming in, and he almost like, if you want an analogy, and because it's Easter and stuff, it's almost like Moses, right? Because Ned Long is parting the seas, and he's letting Nick Daicos just do what he sort of wants. Which is
that's right.
It's a godsend, really, to have Ned Long.
Well, he's the ultimate defensive midfielder that can win his own ball, but still puts a mass amount of pressure on the opposition. High tackler, and he makes them earn every single possession. The problem is if you've got too many Nick Daicoses in there, like you've got to have someone to get their hands really dirty. I mean, exactly. Fair share of contested ball, but he's only a little fellow, and he's he's not intimidating. This is the type of player that you need to win flags, like Dunkley's probably done for Brisbane last year. And that's why I thought Taylor Adams was a really big loss for us last year, even though he was getting on and he had a lot of injuries. He's a big loss. And so where do you select Tim Mitchell? I don't know where he's at the moment. Have you heard any word about when he'll come back?
When I went to the last training session before gather round, he was doing a little bit of running, no match sim, but just running. I think he's still touch and go, but at the moment, I just put up a video comparing Ned Long and Tom Mitchell. I think you can't have both of those in the same team. And are you going to go with...
That was my next question. So you beat me to the mark. So you don't think they can fit them both in the same midfield?
No. I don't reckon. Like, can you... How many sort of bulls can you have around the middle? And can you trust Tom Mitchell's body to hold up? And then you got De Goey as well that can run through the middle. And Ned Long, like you said, he's only 21, 22. He's the future of the Collingwood midfield now. He's going to be with Nick Daicos for another 10 years. So as much as I love Mitchell, and I think we don't win the flag in 2023 without him, we haven't gone past him. There's still a place for him.
No.
But I think Ned Long, at the moment, I can't see Mitchell pushing him out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And sometimes things pan out. I suppose if you're playing VFL really, really well and you're in tip-top condition, he may force himself in
Yep.
regardless, but they have to really have a look at, the way they're going to do it. I mean, you need speed in this game, as we've seen, and we've got plenty of it, but we've also got a couple of medium paces in there as well. We can't have probably too many of
Yeah.
them, can we, when you look at it? But no, it's really exciting to see. And like you said, you were talking about the VFL boys before. Like Hayes, I saw a passage of play where he's gone from back pocket
Fantastic.
to forward pocket and got the ball back. Look, just his elite speed, doesn't he? Like,
Yep.
and he looks like just a genuine out and out forward pocket of the modern ages. Is exactly what you need. A bit of a Bobby Hill type, isn't he? Really.
Yeah.
And Allen seems to still be playing well. And West, I saw kick 5 or 6 against Coburg week before
Yeah.
last
Week
as
before
well.
last, and kicked 2 goals the other day as well. So he's, West is one of those players where I think he can debut really soon, especially if they're going to be resting, Membry or Cox or Myercheck, McStay, resting those older bodies in the forward line.
Yeah.
I think we saw it. We saw it with Logan Morris from Brisbane last year. New on the scene, and he's just he kicked against the Doggies. He kicked 4 or something. So he's monstering defenders now. I think Charlie West can be that guy. But
so that's an interesting one, because you go, do they continue doing what they're doing and don't fix something that's not broken and continue the momentum, or do they go, here's an opportunity while we're winning, while we're chock full of confidence, to throw a kid in to give him some games and see what he's got, what it takes? Because if West could potentially do the same job as a Membry, I know Membry's got the runs on the board and we know what he can do, but imagine if you were to bring a West in for 12 games or 8 games, whatever it looks like, and then a grand final or a final series, potentially even a premiership, and then you've got half a year worth of high quality footy into a kid, and he's just going to go to the next level again next year. Versus leaving Membry, and you know what you're going to get anyway. It might be worth a risk to bring one of these guys in and just see how they go. Do you think?
Well, that's why I was so vocal against probably bringing Cox in against Brisbane. Because the week before last, for Adelaide, Charlie West was our emergency. So I would have liked to have seen, with Membry out, West come in. But they obviously bring in Cox, so McStay doesn't have to do the ruck work. Cox can sort of chop out there. But at the moment, I would give West more of an opportunity than I would Mason Cox, and let Dan McStay be the second ruck. Because look, Mason Cox is 32, 33. It's his last year of his contract. Is he going to get another year? Probably not, I would assume. So like you said, put 8 games into West, or put whatever game you're going to give to Cox. Put that into Charlie West. Let him kick a couple of goals. Let him debut on Anzac Day against the depleted Bombers side.
I think you've got the luxury of being able to do it, and that's why I must admit, I was a bit disappointed that Ed Allen only played 12 minutes or whatever it was the other night. I thought, they've got this game, they've got the sewn up. I know you want to put it out of reach, but do you just bring him on and go, here's a quarter of footy, go for it, son. We'll put you in the middle for the whole last quarter and just go about your business. And he looked pretty sharp again, I thought.
He does,
obviously. Everyone slowed up by 3/4 time, and he's a super fit athlete. We know that. But I think with bringing Cox in, it looked like the other night they were trying to double team the big O as much as they could, and making sure on the small ground that they've always got a big fella stay at home deep in our forward 30, because it is a very short ground, the Gabba, and hence why we're able to, obviously defend the ground really well, because we're fit and we're at the moment, and it's easier ground to defend if you're switched on. But certainly, I think the Cox one was a telling. I know he didn't play a great game, but he still came in and had his 8 or 10 hit outs or whatever he had, and when he goes in there, he just doesn't neutralise it like McStay does. He actually wins tap outs.
He's a good. He's a good look. I'll give it to him, and I've been pretty critical of him this year, but he's a good tap ruckman. He knows exactly where to put it. And look, maybe if he kicked, if he converted those 2 misses on the weekend, I'd be here saying Cox deserves a place in the team. But I do think that given that we are winning and given that we do have the luxury of
Yeah.
depth, you want to give Charlie West these opportunities. And
Well,
against
you look
against
like it was
Essendon,
the right move on the weekend. You got plus 10 in clearances and plus 19 hitouts,
yeah,
and which gives you plus 14 inside 50s based on your clearance work. So it probably worked on the night, but I do agree with you. I think that moving forward for the right teams in a different game, like you're coming up against obviously the premiers from last year, you don't want to take any risks, do you? But
yeah,
this,
yeah.
like you said, maybe this is the next couple of weeks is the time to do it.
Well, look at the Anzac Day game. Draper is out with an Achilles, and they're going to have to bring Goldstein in because Zach Bryan did his
Yeah.
ACL a couple of weeks ago. So
Yeah, wow.
you would think that McStay and Cameron, or even Cameron by himself, could monster a 35-year-old Goldstein.
Well, there's two ways you can look at it. You can go, well, let's back ourselves in no matter what, and to win the game. So let's bring a kid in.
Yeah.
Or you can go, well, let's take advantage of this. We could go with Cox and also, Cameron. Just destroy them in the ruck, completely destroy their confidence by keeping our ruckman fresher and rolling them through quicker. That's the way they can do it. I'd like to say, hey, we can beat Bombers no matter what. Let's just put our kid in and give him a run. But you would think that Membry might be a chance to come back in. He hasn't done too much wrong at this stage. They brought him over for a reason, and he's helped them get in this position. You want to look after the guys that have been helping you get in this position as well. So it's a bit of
100%.
It's a bit of a tricky situation, but good problems to have. You remember back in 2010. When we won the flag in that year, you had, I think, Josh Fraser was playing in the twos, Paul Medhurst, and there might have been even been one other.
I think O'Brien was in there, Lockyer as well, maybe. It was the passing of the baton in 2010.
Yeah.
So those young kids
coming
up.
Seriously good players, and they were dominating VFL and just could not get in as well.
Yeah.
But that's part and parcel of winning a flag, isn't it? You've got to have that situation. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in that situation if you didn't have it. Basically.
Exactly.
But no, that's good, mate. Look, we're obviously pretty excited. Anything else that you're seeing at the moment that they can do better? The Pies, mate.
Probably not what they can do better, but I remember, we touched on the opening round game against the Giants, and I was there at Engie Stadium, and I remember watching it. And when I did my review after the game, I had seen them train since November, so I've been to every single training session leading up to that game, and I said that game was an anomaly. That wasn't the Collingwood that was training. That wasn't anything that we were doing. And then you go from that game and you look at the next five games. We let in 100 points against the Giants, and then our defense is averaging only like 65 points for the last 5 weeks, keeping the Premiers to 53 points. Darcy Moore's back in form. Jeremy Howe's doing really well, and even Billy Frampton. We have to give him his credits because Frampton these last couple of weeks has been phenomenal.
Solid. Yeah, I'm a rep for Frampton. I think the one thing that you look at when you have a look at the stats is up until last week, like even Sydney, I think the inside 50s were very similar, contested ball, clearances, but it was just our efficiency. When we break out a stoppage, we get shoulders out, you get the Daicoses going inside, and you're getting some really quick, clean one-on-one looks versus the opposition. When they go in, we're making their life hard for them with good, solid pressure, or at least when they're exiting stoppage, we're putting under some sort of pressure. Plus, with our boys behind the ball setting up really, really well. Even on the weekend, although we had plus 14 inside 50s, you look at the contested balls, it was only, I think, contested marks were a massive differential. Obviously, we held them up and we make them chip and hold because they couldn't find the gaps. Yep. But a lot of the other stats were all very similar once again. So it just is our efficiency and the way we look going forward with the footy is we're able to get clear through linking up through quick movement, getting shoulders out, and then going inside 50 under limited pressure to some seriously confident forwards at the moment that with real potency. Yeah. So, whereas the opposition, they're not quite being able to get that So they've cleaned up that stuff that we spoke about, haven't they, in round one, where I think Josh Daicos was getting a little bit coming off his man a little bit too early. I think our midfielders were going one side, they were going the other. We weren't sort of, our body work wasn't as strong. Long's gone in there and created another look, a real disciplined look and a hard look and a ruthless look. It just feels like it's starting to come together. We've realised where we were breaking down defensively, and then we've added this, offensive weapon and taken it to the next level, and it's really exciting to watch at the moment. So I think we're going to have a bit of fun between now and the rest of the year.
I think we will, mate, and it'll be Anzac Day is going to be absolutely huge. It's going to be a big game, always a big game against the Bombers, but this is the game where you want to absolutely stamp your authority, because then I think we have the Bombers and I think we have Geelong the next week. So we, and I should mention, before we go, these first 6 weeks, we have played all finalists from last year. We played the grand finalists back to back, the prelim finalists twice, a couple of elimination finalists, and we don't have the luxury like our friends in the suburb over, where we can verse the two worst sides in the last 10 years back to back. You know what I mean? So we finished ninth, so we didn't even play finals. They made finals, but they get the two worst sides back to back. So we're doing it the hard way. And you'd rather, and I think you mentioned it in the season preview.
Well, if Carlton had played Sydney and Brisbane in the last 2 weeks, Voss probably would be sacked.
He'd be gone, 100%. 100%.
Now they grab a little bit of confidence by playing the bottom two teams, and you're right. We haven't had that luxury.
We don't have the. I think they play Richmond. They play West Coast and Kangaroos again before we even play Richmond and West Coast once. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to say the AFL might be a little bit biased, but I went on that tangent to say that I'd rather do it the hard way that we are now, so we know exactly where we are, and then we know for the rest of the year, where we sit. Yeah. So we're playing the hardest teams right now with the hardest run. It gives us a good indicator, good barometer of where we sit as a football club.
Yeah, no, it's certainly exciting, and you can see that defensively we're so switched on compared to what we were in round one, and even in round two and onwards, we've just improved that side of our game. So for me, as someone who coaches and someone who's played the game before, I go in and watch games with. Usually, I'm really nervous about what's going to take place, but I just go in with confidence, going win, lose or draw, we're going to be unbelievably hard to beat, because we're defensively sound and offensively we're just elite, and the opposition, you can see, would be very nervous coming into any game against us, and they're half beat before they've even started the game, because they're building up so much nervous energy before they've even got to the first bounce, and that's the sort of aura you want to build at your footy club, and it means that we're going to have a fun year, Lukey, you and I, watching for the rest of the year, and as long as we have a bit of luck with injuries,
that's the biggest thing.
We're going to top four, hopefully, and then it's up to us from there. So, but I'm probably speaking a little bit out of turn, a little bit too early, but I'm pretty confident. I don't know about you. Are you as confident?
Me too. Like I said, the lid is pretty much. If we smash Essendon, I'm gonna go have a party on Swan Street on Friday night. So we'll go from there.
Good stuff, mate. Thanks for joining me online today.
Thanks,
we'll have to do this every couple of weeks, mate. And,
done.
Review the games together. That'd be great. And nice talking to you, mate. We'll have to jump on again very soon. All right.
Perfect. Done, mate. I'll see you then. Have a good one, brother. Happy Easter.
Go the Pies. Happy Easter.
Up the Maggies.